What happens when one of Hollywood's most respected actors meets his match in the most unexpected way? When Benedict Cumberbatch, known for his razor-sharp intellect and eloquent interviews, finds himself face-to-face with a host who seems determined to tear him down? Well, you're about to witness one of the most uncomfortable television moments ever recorded. This isn't your typical celebrity interview gone wrong. This is something far more intense, far more personal, and it ends in a way that nobody saw coming. Make sure you subscribe and drop a comment below because this story will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about live television. It was supposed to be a routine promotional appearance. Benedict Cumberbatch had been making the rounds, discussing his latest project, a psychological thriller that had been generating Oscar buzz. The View was just another stop on his media tour, or so he thought. As he settled into the familiar setup of the daytime talk show, adjusting his perfectly tailored navy suit, he exchanged pleasantries with the other hosts. Whoopi Goldberg offered her usual warm welcome, Sunny Hostin smiled politely, and the atmosphere seemed cordial enough. But Joy Behar had other plans. "So, Benedict," Joy began, her voice carrying an edge that immediately shifted the energy in the studio. "I have to ask about something that's been bothering me for quite some time now." Benedict raised an eyebrow, his famous features maintaining their composure despite the unexpected opening. "Of course, Joy. What's on your mind?" "It's this whole British superiority complex thing," Joy continued, leaning forward with a smirk that didn't reach her eyes. "You come over here to America, you take our roles, our opportunities, and then you act like you're doing us some kind of favor. Don't you think that's a little presumptuous?" The studio fell silent. Even the camera operators seemed to sense the sudden shift in atmosphere. Benedict's expression remained unchanged, but those who knew him well could detect the slight tightening around his eyes. "I'm sorry, Joy, but I'm not sure I follow," Benedict replied, his voice maintaining its characteristic calm. "I've always been grateful for the opportunities I've been given in American cinema. I certainly don't consider myself superior to anyone." Joy let out a harsh laugh that echoed through the studio. "Oh, please, Benedict. The accent, the fancy education, the way you choose your words so carefully. It's all calculated, isn't it? You know exactly what you're doing." Whoopi shifted uncomfortably in her seat, clearly sensing where this was heading. "Joy, maybe we should focus on Benedict's new film." But Joy wasn't having it. She had locked onto her target and wasn't about to let go. "No, Whoopi, I think this is important. I think our audience deserves to know what they're really getting when they pay their hard-earned money to see a Benedict Cumberbatch movie." Benedict's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Joy, I respect your right to your opinion, but I'm here to discuss my work, not to defend my nationality or my education." "There it is again," Joy pounced, pointing her finger at him across the table. "That condescending tone. That little pause before you speak, like you're carefully choosing words that us simple Americans might understand." The other hosts exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the interview. Sunny Hostin attempted to interject. "Joy, I think Benedict has always been very respectful in his interviews." "Respectful?" Joy's voice rose a notch. "Is it respectful to come into our country and play our most beloved characters? Sherlock Holmes is a British character, fine, but then you go and play Alan Turing, Stephen Hawking, and now you're being considered for American historical figures. Where does it end?" Benedict finally allowed a flash of irritation to cross his features. "Joy, with all due respect, acting is about inhabiting characters, regardless of nationality. Some of our greatest American actors have portrayed British characters beautifully. It's about talent and suitability for the role, not passport color." "Passport color?" Joy seized on the phrase like a predator spotting weakness. "Now you're making jokes about nationality? You think this is funny?" "That's not what I said, and I think you know that," Benedict replied, his voice carrying a warning that Joy either didn't catch or chose to ignore. Joy leaned back in her chair with a satisfied expression. "I'm just saying what everyone's thinking, Benedict. You British actors come over here with your fancy training and your posh accents, and Hollywood just falls all over themselves to hire you. Meanwhile, perfectly capable American actors are struggling to find work." "Joy, that's simply not accurate," Benedict said, his composure beginning to show cracks. "The film industry is global. American actors work extensively in British productions, and vice versa. It's about collaboration, not competition." "Collaboration?" Joy's laugh was sharp and mocking. "Is that what you call it when you swoop in and take the role of Doctor Strange? A character that could have gone to any number of American actors? Benedict's eyes flashed dangerously. I auditioned for that role like everyone else, Joy. I wasn't handed anything. Oh, but you were though, weren't you? Joy pressed on, clearly enjoying herself now. You were handed that accent, that education, that whole package that makes American casting directors weak in the knees. Tell me, Benedict, do you practice that accent, or does it just come naturally when you're trying to impress people? The studio had grown so quiet that the hum of the camera seemed deafening. Benedict's hands, which had been resting calmly on the table, slowly curled into fists. Joy, he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous quiet, I'm going to give you one opportunity to clarify whether you're genuinely interested in having a conversation about the film industry, or whether you're simply looking to create conflict for the sake of your ratings. Joy's eyes lit up with predatory glee. Oh, now we're getting somewhere. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen, the mask is starting to slip. This is the real Benedict Cumberbatch. Not so charming when someone challenges him, is he? Whoopi made another attempt to steer the conversation. Maybe we should take a quick break. No. Joy waved her off. I want to hear what Benedict has to say. Come on, Benedict. Show us that famous wit. Give us one of those clever little comebacks you're so famous for. Benedict stared at her for a long moment, his green eyes boring into hers with an intensity that made even the camera operators step back slightly. When he finally spoke, his voice was ice cold. Joy, in my career, I've had the privilege of working with some truly remarkable people. Directors who push boundaries, writers who challenge perceptions, actors who bring truth to every moment. I've also encountered people who mistake cruelty for honesty, who confuse aggression with journalism. I'm beginning to understand which category you fall into. Joy's smile faltered for just a moment before returning full force. There we go. That's the arrogance I was talking about. You can't help yourself, can you, Benedict? You just have to prove that you're smarter than everyone else in the room. Benedict's expression hardened, and for the first time since the interview began, he allowed his full intelligence to shine through his response. Joy, you seem to be operating under the assumption that intelligence is something to be ashamed of. That articulation is somehow a character flaw. I find that profoundly sad. Sad? Joy's voice cracked like a whip. What's sad is watching you sit there and act like you're above this conversation, above this show, above us. I never said any such thing, Benedict replied, his voice gaining strength. But I do believe I'm above personal attacks disguised as journalism. Joy slammed her hand on the table, causing everyone to jump. Personal attacks? I'm asking legitimate questions about privilege and opportunity in Hollywood, but you can't handle that, can you? You can't handle someone calling out your advantages. My advantages? Benedict's composure was hanging by a thread now. Joy, you know nothing about my background, my struggles, or the work I've put in to get where I am. You're making assumptions based on stereotypes and prejudices. Prejudices? Joy's eyes widened in mock surprise. Oh, this is rich. Now I'm the one with prejudices? Let me tell you something, Benedict. I've been in this business longer than you've been alive. I've seen actors come and go, and I know privilege when I see it. Being in the business a long time doesn't make you right, Joy, Benedict shot back, his voice rising for the first time. It just means you've had more time to develop your biases. The other hosts sat frozen, watching this verbal warfare unfold before their eyes. Sunny Hostin looked like she wanted to crawl under the table, while Whoopi kept glancing toward the control room as if hoping for divine intervention. Joy leaned forward, her voice dripping with venom. Biases? Let me tell you about bias, Benedict. Bias is when a mediocre British actor gets cast as an American icon because some casting director thinks an accent makes him seem more intelligent. Bias is when Hollywood overlooks talented American actors because they're not exotic enough. Mediocre? Benedict's voice was deadly quiet now. Did you just call me mediocre? If the shoe fits? Joy shrugged, clearly enjoying the effect her words were having. I mean, what have you really done that's so special? You played a detective that already existed, you played some historical figures, and you ran around in a cape. None of that required any real creativity or originality. Benedict's hands were trembling slightly now. Whether from anger or restraint, it was impossible to tell. Joy, I've spent my entire career trying to bring depth and authenticity to every role I've taken. To have someone dismiss that work so casually is what? Joy interrupted. Hurtful? Welcome to the real world, Benedict. Not everyone is going to fawn over you and tell you how brilliant you are. Some of us actually have standards. Standards? Benedict's laugh was bitter. Your standard seems to be attacking guests for entertainment value. Is that what passes for journalism on this show? Joy's face reddened. Don't you dare question my journalism. I've been asking tough questions when you were still figuring out which fork to use at dinner parties. There it is, Benedict said, standing up slowly from his chair. Another assumption about my background, another stereotype about class and privilege. You don't know anything about my childhood, Joy. You don't know anything about my family or my upbringing, but you're perfectly comfortable making judgments based on nothing but your own prejudices. Sit down, Benedict, Joy commanded. But there was something in his posture that made her voice sound less confident than before. I don't think I will, Benedict replied, his voice gaining power with each word. I came here to have a professional conversation about my work. Instead, I've been subjected to a character assassination based on nothing but your apparent resentment toward British actors in general. Joy tried to regain control of the situation. Oh, please, don't be so dramatic. This is just a conversation. A conversation? Benedict's eyebrows shot up. Joy, you've accused me of being arrogant, privileged, mediocre, and undeserving of my career. You've mocked my education, my accent, and my nationality. In what world is that a conversation? In the world where celebrities don't get to hide behind their publicists and their carefully crafted images? Joy fired back. I'm giving you a chance to be real for once, instead of just another polished product. Benedict took a step closer to the table, his presence suddenly seeming to fill the entire studio. Real? You want real, Joy? Here's what's real. You've spent this entire interview trying to tear me down, not because of anything I've done or said, but because of what I represent to you. You see someone who's achieved success in a way that threatens your worldview, and rather than engage with that honestly, you've decided to attack. I'm not attacking you, Joy protested, but her voice lacked its earlier conviction. You called me mediocre, Benedict said, his voice cutting through the studio like a blade. You suggested I don't deserve my roles. You mocked my background and my education. If that's not an attack, what would you call it? Joy's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. For the first time since the interview began, she seemed at a loss for words. Benedict continued, his voice growing stronger. And the most tragic part of all this, Joy, is that you had an opportunity to have a meaningful conversation about the global nature of the entertainment industry, about the challenges and opportunities that come with international collaboration. Instead, you chose to make it personal. I was just trying to, Joy started, but Benedict cut her off. You were trying to create a moment, he said firmly. You were trying to get a reaction that you could use for clips and highlights. Well, congratulations, Joy. You've succeeded. You've gotten your moment. The studio was so quiet that the sound of Benedict unbuttoning his suit jacket seemed to echo off the walls. He looked around at the other hosts, his expression softening slightly. Whoopi, Sonny, thank you for having me on the show. I'm sorry that this conversation took the turn that it did. Joy finally found her voice again. You can't just leave, Benedict. We're not finished here. Benedict turned to look at her one final time, and when he spoke, his voice was calm but carried an unmistakable finality. Yes, Joy, we are finished. We were finished the moment you decided that personal attacks were more important than professional discourse. Joy scrambled to her feet, clearly panicked that she was losing control of the situation. Benedict, wait, you're overreacting. This is what we do here. We have honest conversations. Benedict paused at the edge of the interview area, turning back with an expression that could have frozen fire. Honest conversations, Joy? There's nothing honest about what just happened here. You ambushed me with preconceived notions and personal grievances that have nothing to do with me or my work. I was just asking questions that needed to be asked, Joy insisted, but her voice had lost all its earlier bravado. No, Benedict said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute certainty. You were performing. You were putting on a show for your audience at my expense. There's a difference between journalism and cruelty, Joy, and you crossed that line the moment you called me mediocre. Whoopi finally stood up, clearly trying to salvage what was left of the interview. Benedict, please, let's just take a breath here. Benedict's expression softened when he looked at Whoopi, but his resolve remained firm. Whoopi, I have enormous respect for you and for what this show represents. But I will not sit here and be insulted for the entertainment of others. Joy, desperate to regain her footing, made one last attempt to justify her behavior. Benedict, if you can't handle a little pushback, maybe you're not as tough as you think you are. The words hung in the air like a challenge, and Benedict's response was swift and devastating. Pushback, Joy? Is that what you call questioning my talent, mocking my education, and suggesting I don't deserve my career? Because I call that bullying. Bullying? Joy's voice cracked with indignation. I'm a journalist asking tough questions. You're a talk show host who confused aggression with insight. Benedict replied, his voice cutting through her protest like a surgeon's blade. And the saddest part is that you seem to genuinely believe that tearing people down constitutes meaningful television. Joy's face was now bright red. Whether from embarrassment or anger was impossible to tell. You don't get to come on my show and lecture me about television. Your show? Benedict's eyebrows rose in genuine surprise. Joy, this isn't your show. This is The View, and unless I'm mistaken, it belongs to all of the hosts equally. But you've treated it like your personal platform for character assassination. Sunny Hostin, who had been silent through most of the exchange, finally found her voice. Maybe we should all just calm down. Sunny, I am calm, Benedict said, his voice proving his point. I'm also disappointed. I came here expecting a professional interview, and instead, I've been subjected to what can only be described as a personal vendetta. Joy made one final desperate attempt to turn the tables. A vendetta? Against you? Benedict, you're not that important. The studio fell silent except for the sound of Benedict's quiet, humorless laugh. Joy, if I'm not important, then why have you spent the last 20 minutes trying so hard to diminish me? Why have you invested so much energy in proving that I don't deserve my success? Joy opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. For the first time since the interview began, she seemed to realize that she had painted herself into a corner. Benedict continued, his voice growing more authoritative with each word. The truth is, Joy, this has never been about me. This has been about your own insecurities and frustrations. You see someone who's achieved success in a way that challenges your understanding of how the world should work, and rather than examine that honestly, you've chosen to attack. That's not true, Joy whispered, but her protest sounded hollow even to her own ears. Isn't it? Benedict asked, his voice gentle but relentless. Joy, in the course of this interview, you've revealed more about your own character than you have about mine. You've shown our audience that when faced with someone whose success you can't explain away, your instinct is to tear them down rather than try to understand. Joy sank back into her chair, the fight finally going out of her. I was just trying to get to the truth. The truth? Benedict's voice carried a note of genuine sadness now. Joy, the truth is that you came into this interview with your mind already made up. You decided before we even started talking that I was arrogant, privileged, and undeserving. Nothing I could have said would have changed that because you weren't interested in a conversation. You were interested in a confirmation of your own biases. Whoopi made one last attempt to salvage the situation. Benedict, maybe if we just started over. Benedict shook his head slowly. Whoopi, I appreciate the offer, but some things can't be undone. Joy has made it clear that she has no interest in treating me with basic professional respect, and I have no interest in providing entertainment at the expense of my dignity. He turned to face the camera directly, his posture straight and his expression composed. To the viewers at home, I apologize that you had to witness this. You deserve better, and frankly, so did I. Joy made one final, desperate attempt to have the last word. Benedict, if you walk out now, you're just proving my point about British arrogance. Benedict paused at the edge of the set, his hand on the curtain that led backstage. When he turned back to face Joy, his expression was one of genuine pity. Joy, if choosing to maintain my self-respect in the face of unprovoked hostility makes me arrogant in your eyes, then I'll wear that label proudly. But I think most reasonable people would call it something else entirely. And what's that? Joy asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Benedict's final words rang through the studio with the clarity of absolute truth. Dignity, joy, something that no amount of education or privilege can give you, and something that no amount of cruelty can take away unless you let it. With that, Benedict Cumberbatch walked off the View set, leaving behind a stunned studio and a host who had finally met her match. The cameras continued rolling, capturing Joy Behar sitting in stunned silence as the magnitude of what had just transpired began to sink in. The other host sat frozen, unsure of how to proceed, while Joy stared at the empty chair where Benedict had been sitting just moments before. For perhaps the first time in her career, Joy Behar had been left completely speechless. And there you have it, one of the most dramatic exits in daytime television history. What do you think? Did Benedict handle that situation correctly? Or should he have stayed and continued to defend himself? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. What would you have done if you were in Benedict's shoes?